What's going on, guys? This is Rob, and if you're enjoying the content that I'm uploading onto my channel, then feel free to subscribe, and you can also offer suggestions on topics and characters and storylines and whatnot that we can have discussions on later on in this channel. Those of you guys who are veterans to my YouTube channel, you guys know that one of the things that I love to do is to open Adobe Audition, hit the record button, and just let my mind wander on a topic. You guys know I love doing stuff like that. And we've had discussions like that before. You know, we've talked about how to fix Spider-Man, so on and so forth, although I'm probably gonna drop those videos that kind of curtail themselves towards criticism and focus on things that are just fun, you know. And it's kind of interesting because we're a week out from the end of New York Comic Con, right? You know, New York Comic Con ended on the 9th or whenever it was, and it was really interesting being there because, of course, you know, I got there with the rest of the guys at Weekly Pool. We had a huge panel, which you guys can find on Comic Pop. It was really fun to hang out with everybody. And, you know, I met up with a whole bunch of fans, at least, you know, we all met up with a whole bunch of fans, and we talked to you guys. And it was funny going around New York Comic Con because it's so huge. I mean, it's like a world in and of itself. You know, for 3 or 4 or 5 days, depending on when you go, you're literally in a self-contained world. You have everything you need. And it's so cool to me because walking around, it was like, this is where comics are at now. Like, this is where we're at in the realm of comic books. You know, we have our own subculture. You know, we have this gathering of tens of thousands of people who come together once a year in New York City to hang out and talk about comics in a huge fashion. You know, there were people who had novice cosplay. There were people who had advanced cosplay. There were people that had homemade cosplay, people that had cosplay that they ordered online. But whatever it is they chose to do, they were going out and they were celebrating their love of comics and geek culture. And that's such a cool thing. It's such an awesome thing. And so I was sitting there riding the plane back. And the question I kept asking myself is, I wonder how many people out there want to know why we love comic books. I wonder how many people are sitting out there and they look at the coverage of New York Comic Con on Twitch and on, you know, social media, and they look at it on news broadcasts, whether it's local or national. And the question they have is, with everything that's going on, the movies and so on, why do people love comic books so much? So let's talk about this. You know, it's to me, comic books are very similar to like novels, you know, to children's books. Not to tear them down, my point will become clear here in a second, but they're very similar to children's books in the sense that in the early 1990s, it was a well-established fact that children's books just didn't sell. I mean, yes, you'd find them in stores, but kids were growing smarter, kids were becoming more advanced, kids were focusing on more adult-oriented things. You know, the teenagers, the 15-year-olds of the 1990s were the, you know, 20-year-olds of the 1980s. It was just, people were just growing up faster. And so the idea of reading books like, you know, Oversea and Under Stone, you know, the idea of reading books like The White Mountains, those were a thing of the past. I mean, they were there, but it was like, you know, it was by the time you were in, you know, well, it was junior high school, it was 6th and 7th grade back when I was going to school. But, you know, back when you were in this time period, when you were at that age, you were reading more advanced stuff. You know, you were reading more adult-oriented things, trying to fit in, trying to be the cool kid, whatever. And then in like 1997, like June 30th, I think, in 1997, this woman named J.K. Rowling came along and wrote a book called Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. Now, if you're on the other side of the pond over there, you know, in Britain, it was Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, but here in the States, it was the Sorcerer's Stone. And it was interesting because people were like, well, it's a kid's book, whatever, we'll publish it. And it was a really cool story in terms of how it ended up, you know, being published. But it was like, it's a kid's book, you know, maybe it'll sell, maybe it won't sell. That book hit the shelves, and after some amount of time, I can't remember how long, it took the world by storm. People were like, oh my God, Harry Potter, this is amazing. This kid's a wizard. This is so cool. You know, and it made fantasy and children's books cool. Just to give you guys perspective, when Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows hit the shelves, in the first day one of its release, it sold 11 million copies worldwide. That's more than the population of New York City, Manhattan, and the other boroughs. Like that population's like 8 million, all right? Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows sold more copies than there are people in New York City. That is insane. That's crazy to me. And comic books are very similar. All right, so let's wind the clock back. All right, so it's like, you know, I don't know, let's say 1955. All right, Comic books for DC were at the height of their popularity. I mean, you got Superman, who's pulling dying planets out of a galaxy. It's stupid how powerful he is, or out of like a solar system. You know, Batman is kind of popular. He had a lot of issues going on, but he was still really popular. I mean, Batman and Superman were the 1-2 punch of DC. Marvel had Captain America in the 1940s, but when World War II ended, you know, comic books just became pretty unpopular. Superheroes didn't become popular. So unless you were one of like 7 heroes coming out of DC, nobody was really reading your stories. All the comic book publishers were basically publishing like science fiction stuff. So DC, you know, under Julius Schwartz, does this great big huge revamp in the mid-1950s, brings in Barry Allen, brings in Hal Jordan, revamps Superman, retells his origin story, you know, ups the ante on Batman, and it all just kind of takes off. So by this point, Marvel Comics is now Marvel Comics. It's not, you know, Timely Comics, it's not Atlas Comics, it's officially Marvel. And in 1962, they give us Spider-Man. Now, this was the biggest deal in the world. This is the biggest thing to ever happen, you know, in the realm of comics, because prior to Spider-Man, like, if you were a teenager, you were a sidekick, and there was no two ways about it. Like, you were Aqualad, or you were Robin, or you were Superboy, you know, or you were Donna Troy, Wonder Girl. Like, you were not the main attraction of the show. You just happened to be there, and you were being used as a way for comic book publishers to bring in young readers. But Stan Lee and Jack Kirby and Steve Ditko sat down and they said, what would happen if we made a teenager a superhero? How would people respond to that? Spider-Man popped up and he sold like gangbusters. Amazing Fantasy issue number 15 was huge. Spider-Man got his own solo series and he became even more popular. They actually, in issue number 1, he tried to join the Fantastic Four and they told him no. It was actually a pretty funny story. But it was a huge deal when it first came out. I mean, it was nuts. You know, after that, Marvel was like, hey, we're on to a winning recipe here. Like, we're on to a winning formula here. I mean, teenagers as superheroes? Hell yeah, man. Like they love that stuff. They eat it up like crazy. So we've got to do that. Like, we've got to make more of that. We got the X-Men. X-Men didn't do so hot, but it really just complemented everything that Marvel had going on, because the Fantastic Four were your regular family. You know, it was your family, it was my family, it was, you know, your friend's family, it was your girlfriend or boyfriend's family. They bickered, they argued, they had their, you know, disagreements, but it was a normal depiction of family life in the 1960s as families existed in the 1960s. And so it just struck a chord with everybody. I mean, you had the Avengers, which were the most powerful non-mutant heroes in Marvel Comics. I mean, it was nuts the way everything was going on. And it created this super popular recipe. Because of that, you know, characters like Iron Man, Thor, Captain America's Return, and Avengers number 4, you know, Spider-Man, you know, the X-Men when they were written by Chris Claremont, they just rose to prominence. And Marvel started focusing on character. They were writing about characters. DC did the exact same thing, and that is why we love comic books. When you sit down and you look at Batman, you don't see a guy with superpowers, right? Or at least I hope you don't. You know, he's a rich guy who became Batman because he watched his parents killed. You know, he watched his parents get murdered by a guy named Joe Chill. The story's been told countless times in DC Comics. But if you put a guy on a rooftop with a sniper rifle who knew that Batman's real identity was Bruce Wayne, and he took a shot while Bruce Wayne was heading into an office tower, the Batman comics are done. That's it. Bruce Wayne's gone. I mean, in comics they can bring him back, but you know, that's the death of Bruce Wayne. That's all it takes. A guy on a rooftop with a sniper rifle. No more Bruce Wayne. When you look at characters like Superman, you see this godly level being. You know, you see this dude from another planet. You see this guy who's, you know, literally just trying to find a home for himself. The last son of Krypton. The guy lost everything. He was sent away from a home he never knew, by parents that he'll never know, to a world that is not his home. He's adopted Earth, but it's not his home. He'll never know what it's like to be at home. He'll never know what it's like to say, this is where I belong. When he looks at Earth, he says, this is where I'm needed. I mean, he may say this is where I belong, but in his heart of hearts, it's never the case, and it's never going to be the case. That's the beauty of Superman. He's a guy with a life that's not his own, but he does what he can. Not only that, because of how he's written, he's something to aspire to. Oh, we got the New 52 Superman, you know, and he was the guy trying to figure himself out, but nobody wants the Superman trying to understand his place. People want the Superman that knows his place. People want the Superman who shows up and he was like, you're going to leave this planet and stop bothering us, or I'm going to take you behind the woodshed and give you the ass whooping of a lifetime. Pardon my language. That's the Superman that we want, you know. But he does this because he's protecting, not because he's just angry at the world because things aren't going his way. When we look at Teen Titans, we see ourselves as teenagers in that comic book. I don't know about you guys, but when I was a teenager, I was angsty. Just filled with so much rage. No one understands me. The adults are trying to hold me back. I want to grow. I want to be my own person. I want to experience the world. That's what I wanted to be as a teenager. I was 16 years old and I wanted to be an adult. I was 13 going on 30. Teen Titans gives us that. Teen Titans are not necessarily angsty. They kind of are. But it is teenagers who are adults. The new run of Teen Titans is led by Damian Wayne, one of the greatest superheroes in the entirety of DC Comics. So much character development, so much drive, so much ambition. I love reading his stories. He's this dark kid who was trained to be an assassin, finds out Bruce Wayne's his dad. He's trying to cast aside this assassin nature, but he just can't quite let it go. It's an ingrained part of who he is. And it makes for some incredible storytelling. We look at the X-Men, right? Anyone in their life who's been made to be, made to feel bad about who they are, who's been put down, who's been made fun of, for their size or for their hair, for their skin color, their physical features, their eye color, what family they come from. Anyone who's been made to feel cast out from normal society identifies with the X-Men. The X-Men are an in-comic reflection of discrimination in society for whatever reason. They're an in-comic reflection of prejudice. Human beings in comic books don't like the X-Men. And in fact, there was this amazing segment, I think it was in Civil War, I can't remember what it is, but there was this amazing segment when I think Reed Richards was talking about the X-Men. And what he said was that the issue here with regards to the X-Men team is the Avengers save the world multiple times. They save the world all the time. People celebrate them. The Avengers, yes, they've avenged us. They've done what they do and it saved the world and yay, the Avengers win, they defeat the bad guy and, rose petals fall from the sky and it's a parade through New York City and Thor's like, yes, let's drink some alcohol, let's get smashed to celebrate our victory. And Tony Stark's like, I'm already drunk, and it's great, it's fun, it's super cool. But on the other side of the coin, when the X-Men do it, people are like, get out of here, man. Go away, you weird mutant people. Get out of here. We don't like you. And the root of their hatred is the fact that they're terrified of them. Humans are terrified of mutants. They're terrified of what mutants represent. Mutants represent extinction. Mutants represent the average human being being swept away in place of more advanced human beings. Homo sapien being replaced with Homo superior. Granted, there are villains out there like Magneto who does no favors and literally just wants to wipe stuff out. In recent years, it was Cyclops. In recent years, Cyclops became the new Magneto. Cyclops just kind of lost his shit and he was going on this campaign of saying, let's just get rid of all the humans. Magneto was right. Let's just get rid of them all. Let's call it a day. And if there are no more people out there that hate us, if there are no more humans, well, then no one can hate us. Whatever. It was kind of cool. The writing was so-so. But the fact remains, when you look at these ideas, when you look at Superman, something to aspire to, you look at Batman as a regular human being capable of achieving incredible feats. You look at the X-Men, who have experienced prejudice, discrimination. You look at the Teen Titans. You look at Spider-Man. I may have said Spider-Man already. You look at these different characters, and what you see is relatability. Someone can pick up Spider-Man who's been picked on their entire life. They've been made fun of. They just can't get the girl. The girl's like, hey, no, look, I'm going to go date the star of the football team. All right, you're not the kind of guy that I date. That's just not the way the world works. I don't date you. Like you read comic books, you know, and you watch cartoons and all that kind of stuff, you know. She doesn't grasp how special you are. And for that reason, she doesn't date you. That kid can go by Spider-Man. And for 24 pages, he's the hero of the world. For 24 pages, he saved the world. For 24 pages, he can read about how his arch nemesis took over his body. And his arch nemesis came to redeem himself, all the while operating under the moniker of Superior Spider-Man. For 24 pages, he could be in a relationship. The suspension of disbelief goes a long way with relatability. Someone coming from a poor background can look up at Superman and say, he represents what I can be. Not in the sense of flying. I mean, I hope you don't jump out a window trying to fly like Superman, but he represents what they can be. Honest. Doing the right thing, even if no one's around to see it. Having integrity. Making a promise and keeping it, even when it seems impossible. People can look at the X-Men and they can say, yes, I've been discriminated against. Yes, I've experienced prejudice. Yes, I've experienced what it means to be torn down and put down time and time again. But like the X-Men, I have to keep on fighting. Like the X-Men, I have to keep on going. I got to keep trucking along. Because a time will come when there will be light at the end of that tunnel. And when I get to the end of that tunnel, I know greater things are waiting. This relatability is a hallmark of why we love comic books. It's the core of why we love comic books. Because even if right now at 32 years old, I don't identify with comic book superheroes. Even if at 32 years old right now, I don't sit down and say, I could see myself being Batman. I could see myself dressing up as a bat, running out into the street and beating people up in the dead of night. You know, there was a point in my life where maybe I could. Even if I don't see myself as Cyclops of the X-Men, shooting lasers out of my eyes, there was a time where I have experienced discrimination. And I did keep on keeping on. And there was something greater at the end of that tunnel. That's why we love comics. For all you guys out there who are asking that question, that's why we love comics. Because whether you're a Marvel fan, or you're a DC fan, or you're a Valiant Comics fan, or an Image Comics fan, there is a character out there somewhere that you can relate to on a personal level. That maybe it inspires you, maybe it drives you for something better. That's the core. That's the reason. So anyway, I like doing these little segments, these little spiels. These are pretty fun. But if you guys enjoy videos like this, make sure you guys hit the like button. Make sure you guys hit the sub button to become part of the Rob Corps, and leave a comment down below. If there, just it doesn't need to be anything major. Just leave a comment down below and tell me, who's your favorite superhero or team? And it doesn't matter who's making it. If it's Valiant Comics and it's X-O Man of War, if it is Image Comics and it's Spawn, if it's DC and it's Batman, or it's Marvel and it's, you know, the Incredible Hulk. Whatever the case may be, just post your comments down and let me know who your favorite superhero is. And I will catch you guys later. Peace.